I know in the last video I said you were getting anomaly claps, but I scrapped that to work on that Paru Itagaki video, but that is also way bigger than I expected. Like seriously, do you have any idea how much she has written? Because it's way more than you think. So let's be topical like an ointment and talk about two visual novels I've played recently. The first being Light My Way, which I've briefly discussed before. Light My Way is a visual novel made by Bat Studios, and to explain the plot very quickly because you may have time but I don't. The continent of Stratia has been at peace between carnivores and herbivores, but none of that matters to Lucian. He's always had more personal problems with his eyes, a kind of photosensitivity if not hallucinations. But it's only when he gets to college that he learns that there's more going on. That he's been seeing these things called aspects his entire life, that there are many relatively speaking like him, but there's one thing that sets Lucian apart. Most people have one aspect, but Lucian is positively overflowing with them, and it seems not all of them are friendly. I already mentioned it last time I talked about this, but I ought to mention again. I love how this visual novel is so upfront with what it is. But again, I've talked about all that before, so let me address some stuff that I haven't talked about at all. Namely, that the side characters in Light My Way are one of my favorite things about it. The only character I really had time to mention in the past was Atlas, Lucian's childhood friend and sports star. It's quite clear that he has feelings for Lucian. I mean, they straight up have sex at the beginning of the game, but he was also very much cheating on his girlfriend when he did that. Which explains why he cut contact with Lucian afterwards, and why things get so complicated when he tries to pick things back up with the fox. On one hand, you kind of want to hate him since you naturally want to side with the protagonist. But he proves time and time again that he's not really a bad person, so it's easy to let things slide. There's also Lucian's two best friends, Darius and Fabian, the lion and the rabbit, respectively. Pictured here shirtless because I know you fools wouldn't click on this video otherwise. The most important role they have in the story, I think, is having the ability to call Lucian out on his bullshit. They're friends, they've already exchanged backstories, so they know what Lucian's whole deal is, but they also know that Lucian knows what their whole deal is. They know when Lucian is throwing a pity party for himself because other people have problems as well. And unlike Lucian, not dealing with their problems isn't likely to get anyone hurt or killed. And this then ties back into my favorite character in the visual novel, Catherine. The best way I can describe her is as the overall leader. She's the one who bosses around the people who boss around Lucian and his gang. And she is intense to put it mildly, abrasive to put it less so, and an asshole to be brutally honest. It's not that she isn't nice or doesn't have a sense of whimsy, it's just that there's no time to show it off in the entire visual novel because things are so shit-tastically fucked. It creates this weird space where you do sympathize with her and get why she's acting like this, but you also sympathize with Lucian and the rest of those who work under her. I don't really have a good transition sense for this part, so here, the last thing about Light My Way I want to talk about in this very limited time is how kinetic the visual novel is. There isn't really a solid definition of what I mean, so to explain it, visual novels tend to be fairly static things for better and for worse. But Light My Way pays special attention to the way things move beyond just the sprites moving on and off screen. Like take this pool scene that I'm shamelessly throwing in front of you like shaking keys in front of a gay baby. Come on, do I have your attention yet? Good. The movement here emphasizes the depth and calls attention to each part of the composition. Each piece isn't just moving at once, but they're all moving at their own cycles, like Darius moving up and down while Atlas and Lucian move side to side. Or how Kieran and James remain static in the background, making the scene more engaging. Even something as simple as making the screen wobble and shake as the characters begin to lose it, or just a pop-up jump scare. Having the screen be hazy when a character wakes up from a hangover and move back and forth until they get their bearings. It makes Light My Way a really engaging visual experience. That's why I, of course, put a link to it in the description. And while you're down there, do be sure to like and subscribe and whatnot. The other game I'd like to talk about is Casey Noir and the Carved Pumpkins Latte. Rather than being a visual novel, it's a point-and-click mystery game using Ren'Py as an engine. It has an interesting history, first getting life as a Halloween game jam project, which you can still definitely feel from all the Halloween decor. Then the story got new life as a full release of a short visual novel, but it's getting even more life as it comes to Steam at the beginning of October. I was actually invited to cover this one, even got to do an interview with the devs. It was nice, you can watch it in the stream if you'd like, but back to the game itself. The setting is a hotel, the time is late in the evening, and our protagonist is the titular Casey Noir. An immortal shade invited to this party by an old, emphasis on old, friend, Bobby. Of course, we have the other guest, Lady Quintessence, the rich socialite who I have direct confirmation from the author that her name is so long it's abbreviated to LQ to fit in the text boxes. Then we have Mr. and Mrs. Romero, who've taken the title of Double Trouble because subtlety can go right out the window. Crescent and her girlfriend, Pumpkin, who think calling the Romeros trouble is putting it mildly. The inheritor of a lost glory, who wins the award for most dramatic nickname, is the child of an infamously cruel businessman looking to recover the family's lost reputation. But things get complicated quite quickly when a corpse comes falling from the sky. And since Casey is a private investigator, and because the cops won't be here till morning, it falls on Casey to figure out how things went down. The game is broken into roughly 3, maybe 4 acts, starting with the prologue, which is exactly what it sounds like. The period when they first arrive and meet the cast and the murder happens, and that's followed by the first act where you're allowed to explore and collect clues. You're also able to talk to those you come across, collect alibis, and put together what happened. The last 2 acts are calling for a class trial, reaching conclusions, going on brief clue hunts to settle in new developments, and figuring out who did it. It's a standard mystery story structure that really shouldn't surprise you too much. I like the story, but it wasn't anything I'd consider super unprecedented. I like the characters and do wish I could see more of them, namely Bobby, since he's actually Casey's ex. Remember that Casey is a shade and is therefore basically immortal. They don't age at all, but Bobby has. There's a lot of room to explore how a relationship like that begins and ends, and what they felt during the time between. As for the other side characters, I don't want to say that they're simple, it's more like they're utilitarian in their approach. I don't totally hate it since it does leave you wanting to know more about all of these characters. The Romeros may be mean, but you see them relying on each other and reining the other one in. It's clear that they have depth to them, but the visual novel is like 2 hours long, so there's not much time to actually go and show it off. However, what's Casey Noir's greatest strength is by far its composition. You've probably noticed it just from watching the footage, but Casey Noir is drowning in its own sense of excess style. From the way names appear as characters are talking, to the backgrounds and CGs being one and the same. Minor animations here and there to add movement to a scene, or even fully animated moments like Casey dancing. One moment that just completely blew me away, spoilers by the way, is when Crescent finds the box to a wedding ring she'll never be given. The way the CG just paints itself across the wall, full of unsaid emotions, is just fantastic. It's one of those moments when a visual novel really remembers that it's a visual novel and lets the art do the storytelling rather than the text boxes. Casey Noir and the Carved Pumpkins Latte was a wonderful experience that I definitely will replay again once it hits Steam. Not only is there a developer's note to expand on behind the scenes in the current version, but in the Steam version there's also going to be an epilogue to expound on character motivations. I've already wishlisted it on Steam, and I'm recommending you do too, and I'm including links to the current itch version and the Steam page in the description. Now why don't you like and subscribe while I get to our Patreon shoutouts so I can go ahead and get my ass out of here. For our 3 stars, we have special thanks to Choron, SkyKing64, 87 Warehouse, Galen Faye, Zora Chow, Venomous, Riley Broom 378, The Good Old Days, and Stassi. For 4 stars, we have McCoyties and Audley Aw, The Bonanzas. And for our Super D-Tuber special 5-star shoutouts, we have Hodari Lion, The Cursed Yo-Yo. Thank you for watching, do be sure to like and subscribe. As always, this is Fuuri signing out.